She unveiled the truth I knew in my heart: I'm a lesbian. Unveiled. Chapter 1: The Portrait and the Mirror. Krita Patel didn't believe in signs, but the universe had a flair for irony. She had spent her 20s painting people she didn't really see, husbands, wives, and children frozen in domestic perfection. Art that sold well enough to pay the rent but never set her pulse racing. It wasn't that she disliked her life in Raleigh. It was just beige. Predictable. Like an art gallery where the air conditioning hum was the loudest thing in the room. Until Bonnie walked in. She was a curator, though curator was too small a word for her presence. She moved like she edited the space around her, touching a frame, tilting her head, frowning with the concentration of someone who expected beauty to behave. Her hair was dark and loose, her jacket the color of coffee, and her voice, low, a little rough, was the kind that stuck in your ears after it left. Krita hadn't noticed she was holding her breath until Bonnie spoke. Your use of light is brave. Brave? Krita asked, caught between offense and intrigue. Bonnie smiled, eyes bright. Most people use it to flatter. You use it to confess. That word, confess, hit somewhere behind Krita's ribs. Maybe I just don't like shadows, she said. Maybe you don't like hiding. The gallery noise blurred, the click of heels, the polite applause for safe art. Krita stared at her newest painting, the one Bonnie was studying, a faceless woman standing in front of a mirror. The strokes were restless, unfinished. She'd told herself the piece was about anonymity, but suddenly it looked like something else, someone else. Bonnie tilted her head, reading Krita like a book she already knew the ending of. She looks like she's about to realize something. Krita forced a laugh. Aren't we all? But later, when the gallery emptied and Krita walked home under sodium yellow streetlights, the word stayed with her. Confess. She didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Bonnie's, steady, patient, knowing, and the reflection of a woman she didn't recognize yet. Chapter 2: Coffee, Canvas, and Unspoken Things. The next morning, Krita found Bonnie already waiting at Vireo, the quiet coffee shop near the museum that smelled like cinnamon and wet wool. Bonnie had claimed the small table by the window, sunlight outlining her like a careful halo. A sketchbook lay open in front of her, though Krita suspected she had come here to be seen rather than to draw. You're late, Bonnie said, smiling like it was a private joke. I'm dramatic, Krita countered, peeling off her scarf. There's a difference. Dramatic is when you order a cappuccino and call it a milk opera. Bonnie slid a mug toward her. Which I assumed you would, so I got it started. Krita blinked. You ordered for me? Calculated risk, Bonnie said, eyes dancing. You're the kind of person who pretends she doesn't care what the phone looks like, then stares at it hoping a swan appears. Krita stared down. A swan, perfect, smug, floated in the foam. Ridiculous. Sweet. Something in her chest clicked forward a notch. They talked about paintings because it was safer than talking about people. Bonnie spoke like a conductor, Krita, like someone who had always written the music alone. The conversation glided and then hit unexpected edges. Bonnie's teenage years in a conservative church where every hymn had footnotes, Krita's family dinners where love came garnished with a gentle insistence on the life she would eventually live. Husband. Children. A house with a yard and a grill and laughter that would mean she'd finally arrived. And your work? Bonnie asked, softer now. Why the faceless women? Krita traced the paper ring on her mug. I used to think it was about universality. Now it feels like I've been dodging the parts one can't paint because I won't say them out loud. Bonnie leaned in, elbows on the table. Say one. One. Krita laughed, flustered. Audit me like a portfolio, why don't you? Fine. Bonnie tapped the window with a finger, a bright, delicate sound. What did you notice first when you walked in? You, slipped out before Krita could varnish it. Heat lifted up her neck. Your jacket, she corrected, unconvincingly. Bonnie's smile didn't widen, it deepened. I noticed your hands, she said. They argue with your mouth. Your mouth says, everything's fine. Your hands say, I'm holding a live wire very calmly. Krita flexed her fingers under the table, caught. Let's do this properly, Bonnie said, standing. Studio visit. Today. No excuses. I want to see where the brave light comes from. In Krita's studio, a second bedroom with good north windows and objectively poor ventilation, Bonnie walked the perimeter like a tide deciding what to keep. Paintings leaned against walls, women at bus stops, women on stoops, women in back seats staring out, every one of them lit like a confession waiting to happen. Show me the one you hide, Bonnie said. Krita laughed, then realized Bonnie meant it. She hesitated, then lifted a canvas from behind the wardrobe. It was new, raw. A woman's mouth at the edge of a frame, no eyes, no nose, just lips parted, as if the next breath mattered. The light clung to the lower lip like it loved the place it had chosen. Bonnie exhaled as if someone had let a window open in her ribcage. There she is. Krita swallowed. It felt indecent. To paint the wanting and not the face. Faces lie, Bonnie said. Mouths tell on us. They stood too close. The air grew saturated with orange peel, linseed oil, and something nameless. Krita could hear the soft tick of cooling pipes and, beneath it, her own pulse making small, sincere promises. Come to the opening Friday, Bonnie said suddenly, stepping back before the room broke. There's a late panel. I'll make sure you speak. I don't, public speaking. Confession, remember? Bonnie's eyes softened. You don't have to confess to them. Just to yourself. After she left, Krita sat on the floor with the painting across her knees. The room looked the same, but it felt different, like someone had pressed a thumb into wet clay and left a shape that would harden into truth. She turned the canvas sideways, then upside down. The mouth kept wanting. In the mirror over her desk, Krita caught a glimpse of herself. The light outlined her throat. She lifted her hand, touched her own lower lip, and felt the nerve-bright thrill of recognition. It didn't scare her. It steadied her. Chapter 3, What Honesty Sounds Like. Friday came dressed like a dare. The gallery hummed with chatter, glasses clinking, people laughing a little too loud in the way people do when art makes them nervous. Krita wore black, always a safe color, except when it wasn't. Her palms were damp. Every time she looked up, her eyes went searching for Bonnie before she could stop them. Bonnie arrived late, of course. She never entered rooms, she altered them. A silk scarf at her throat, hair pinned loose enough to make gravity jealous. She moved through the crowd, stopping only when she reached Krita. You showed, she said, smiling like that counted for bravery. You told me to confess. I tell everyone that, Bonnie murmured, leaning close enough that Krita could smell citrus and ink. Most don't listen. When Bonnie introduced her on stage, Krita thought she might faint. The mic hissed, her heart pounded, but the words came. She spoke about color and form, about how light didn't illuminate so much as reveal. And then, without planning, she said, sometimes we paint people before we admit we love them. The silence that followed was surgical. The crowd smiled, polite, but Bonnie froze. Her lips parted, breath caught, eyes widening with something that wasn't surprise so much as recognition. Afterward, they slipped into the alley behind the gallery, both pretending they hadn't. The air smelled of rain and ozone. Krita laughed shakily. Well, that's one way to come out, I guess. Bonnie's voice was quiet. You don't owe the world a label. I don't, Krita said. But I owe myself a truth. Bonnie stepped closer. And what truth is that? Krita met her gaze, the kind of looking that builds whole futures. That I've been painting you since the day I met you. Something broke, softly. Bonnie reached up, fingertips tracing the line of Krita's jaw, and the space between them vanished. The kiss wasn't dramatic. It was small, deliberate, like signing a name you'd practiced forever. When they pulled apart, Bonnie whispered, "So this is what your light was confessing." Krita smiled, dizzy and sure. "Guess I finally stopped hiding." The city hummed around them, neon and rain reflecting off puddles like applause. For the first time in years, Krita didn't feel faceless. She felt seen. Chapter 4, After the Confession. Morning arrived late, soft and golden through Krita's studio windows. The air smelled faintly of coffee and turpentine, and Bonnie's scarf was draped across the easel like proof the night hadn't been a dream. Krita sat cross-legged on the floor, sketchbook open, trying to trap the memory of that kiss before the day diluted it. Bonnie padded out of the bedroom wearing one of Krita's shirts, sleeves rolled to the elbow. She looked devastatingly ordinary, hair messy, eyes still half asleep, and it undid Krita more than any midnight moment. "Are you drawing me?" Bonnie asked, voice still morning rough. "Trying," Krita said. "You keep moving. That's survival instinct." Bonnie came closer, peering at the page. "You make me look kinder than I am. You make me braver than I was." They smiled, a small, private exchange that made the room feel bigger. Bonnie folded down to sit opposite her, the hem of the shirt grazing her knees. "You realize we're both going to overthink this by lunch." Krita laughed. "Too late. I already started a list titled Disasters in the Making." "Let me guess." Bonnie held up a finger. "Number 1, what if this ruins the art?" Krita nodded, sheepish. "Number 2, what if it doesn't?" Bonnie's grin turned softer. "Because then you'll have to admit that joy is a valid subject." The words hit somewhere deeper than critique. Krita reached for her mug just to have something to hold. "I painted loneliness so long, I forgot it wasn't the same thing as truth." Bonnie leaned forward, resting her forehead against Krita's. "Then paint this instead. Paint what happens when someone finally tells the truth out loud." Krita's breath caught. "Stay." "I will," Bonnie said simply. "But you'll still have to finish the painting." Outside, the city began to wake, buses sighing, a distant siren, pigeons holding committee on the roof. Inside, the only sound was pencil on paper and the soft, unhurried rhythm of two people learning what honesty looked like in daylight. Krita shaded the curve of a shoulder, the line of a smile, and realized she was painting neither fear nor longing. She was painting relief. Chapter 5, The Exhibition of Us. Weeks passed in the gentle rhythm of creation and discovery. Krita painted with new appetite, color blooming from her brushes like something that had been waiting for permission. Bonnie became part of her palette, coffee rings on the edge of canvases, laughter echoing through the studio, the smell of her shampoo blending with oil paint and rain. They built something wordless together. Bonnie would read aloud from art catalogs, her voice wrapping the space, while Krita painted until her fingers cramped. When Krita grew frustrated, Bonnie would walk behind her, rest a hand at the base of her neck, and say, "You're chasing control. Let it chase you instead." One afternoon, Krita finished a piece she didn't mean to start, a portrait of two women lit by morning light, one asleep, one awake, watching her. The expression on the waking woman's face was wonder and terror in equal measure. Bonnie found her staring at it, paint still wet. "It's us," Bonnie said quietly. "It's you," Krita murmured. Bonnie shook her head. "It's both." Look at her eyes, she's seeing herself for the first time, in someone else's gaze. Krita's throat tightened. "I don't know how to show this publicly." "You don't have to," Bonnie said. "Just don't hide it from yourself." But she did show it, eventually. The new exhibition, titled Unveiled, opened in late spring. The gallery's walls glowed with women in every posture of revelation, laughing, crying, kissing, resting. Faces lit by moments that refused apology. When Bonnie arrived, the crowd parted without meaning to. She wore a black jumpsuit and the confidence of someone who'd spent her life naming beauty in others but was still surprised to be part of it. Krita's pulse stuttered as Bonnie approached. "You said once that I used light to confess," she said. "You were right." Bonnie's eyes shone, the kind of shine that makes artists forget to breathe. And what's this one confessing? That I'm not afraid anymore. Bonnie reached out, fingertips grazing Krita's wrist in front of everyone. The world didn't end. No one gasped. Somewhere, someone clapped. Krita smiled, small and sure. Guess I finally painted the truth. Bonnie leaned in, whisper soft. You didn't just paint it, Krita. You lived it. And for the first time, Krita believed her. Chapter 6, What the Light Kept. The last guests left the gallery after midnight. Paper cups and stray compliments littered the floor. Krita stood barefoot among her paintings, exhausted and dizzy with the kind of quiet that follows courage. Bonnie walked the room once more, her fingertips grazing frames the way a musician touches keys. You did it, she said, her voice thick with something that wasn't pride so much as awe. Krita leaned against the nearest wall. I kept waiting for it to feel like a mistake. Bonnie smiled. And? It feels like breathing after holding it too long. They moved through the dim hall together, pausing before the final painting, the portrait of two women in morning light. The varnish had dried into a subtle sheen, catching every color Krita hadn't known she could use. She reached out and touched the bottom edge of the frame. I used to think art was supposed to hide the artist, she murmured. Now I think it's supposed to reveal her. Bonnie's reflection met hers in the glass. You didn't just reveal her, she said. You rescued her. Krita turned then, all pretense gone. I spent so many years trying to be good daughter, good friend, good enough. I didn't realize how small that word makes you. Bonnie stepped closer. Small isn't safe. It's just quiet. Krita's laugh came out half-broken. You sound like a poem I didn't write. Maybe I am, Bonnie said. You can illustrate me later. The moment stretched, fragile and luminous. Bonnie brushed a strand of hair from Krita's face, her touch hesitant and sure all at once. You know what I love most about your paintings? Tell me. They never end at the frame. The world keeps going outside the edges. Krita swallowed hard. That's how you feel. Like the edges don't apply. Bonnie smiled softly, and before Krita could think, before the fear could slither back, she kissed her again. Not tentative, not testing, just the slow, steady claiming of two people who had already chosen. When they broke apart, the gallery lights hummed back to life on their timer, flooding them in gold. Krita looked around, suddenly laughing. Even the electricity approves. Of course it does, Bonnie said, looping her arm through hers. It knows what honesty looks like. They walked out into the night, the city slick with rain. Streetlights glowed like constellations reborn, and for once, Krita didn't wonder who she was supposed to be. She already knew. The end.